4 divisions, 4 hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL Podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Power.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 29 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, the Holy GrAHL. You guys, we've been talking about it for weeks, but it's officially playoff time. I'm excited. Before we do anything, of course, as always, we're going to go around the group here, introduce ourselves. And you know what? Let's go. This season feels like it's been a bit backwards, so we're going to go backwards with this. Zack, lead us off.
Oh, wow. Now I'm Zack Power. I'm a writer with Field Pass Hockey now in, I guess, third season now. It's soon coming to a close, the third season. But we got a great playoffs ahead of us, and it's going to be an exciting one.
No doubt. And what's up, everyone? My name is Jeremy Paul. I am covering beat for the Rochester Americans on Field Pass Hockey. I didn't think that I'd have a team to still write about here when we recorded last week, but by some grace of whatever higher power, the Amerks slipped in. I'm so excited to talk about their series with Belleville and all of the rest of the really great playoff matchups we've got coming our way.
That higher power being the Toronto Marlies and their inability to close out.
Correct. Yep.
Anyway, hi guys, I'm Deana Weinheimer. I am your AHL editor, Cleveland Monsters correspondent. While I don't have a beat team to cover, there's plenty of still AHL action to cover, so I'll, be a big part of all of that. And yeah, just excited to talk playoffs.
Beatless team, woo!
Oh, other one. There it is. I'm not used to going last, but I'm Andrew Rinaldi. I cover the beat for the Chicago Wolves and the Grand Rapids Griffins. Well, two totally different ends of the spectrum there, but this is my second year at Field Pass and my first time covering a postseason run in any form. So I am incredibly excited about that. This is by far the best time of the year. Move over Christmas. This is what we're here for. I mean, just check out the name of the podcast. So let's get right into it.
What's sad?
And Deana's already in playoff one.
I've been covering parts of an ECHL playoff series, but I just wanted to say what's sad is that Zack and I have been here. This is our third season now. Jeremy is in his first season. We've experienced the same number of playoffs now, which is one.
Last year was sort of a playoffs.
Do you really count what the Pacific did last year as playoffs? Really?
It's a game where the points don't matter.
Uh-oh.
Whose postseason isn't anyway? All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the week in review here. We got a lot of things to cover, from monthly awards to a weekly award to regular season awards, and of course, a couple of big news pieces. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. First, monthly award. Grand Rapids Griffins forwards Riley Barber and Jonatan Berggren and Syracuse Crunch goaltender Max Lagace have been selected as the league's award winners for April. Of course, Barber has been awarded AHL Player of the Month, 15 goals, 21 points, and 13 games for Grand Rapids during the month of April. Berggren, who has been named the AHL Rookie of the Month, 6 goals, 14 assists for 20 points and 14 games for Grand Rapids during the month of April, which closes out his rookie season with an 11-game scoring streak. Tell me, Andrew, is that good?
It might be a little bit good. Little bit good. We do love Johnny Burgers on this pod, so anytime we get to pump his tires, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. Then closing out that list, Max Lagace, the AHL goaltender of the month, went 9-1-1 during 11 starts in April, only allowing 17 goals on 296 shots, recording a 1.56 goals against average and a .943 save percentage for Syracuse. In my mind, one of the key reasons why they made it into the postseason and got such a high seed, because they were fighting. They were down in that group with Toronto and Rochester there for a while. I mean, Belleville too. and somehow snuck in and looked darn good doing it.
Because the Toronto Marlies don't know how to close out. I mean, Barber was on a scoring streak that hasn't been seen in this league in 5 years, and which is to score 16 points in 16 straight games. And you've seen Berggren as a rookie with points in 11 straight. It's how does this team not make the playoffs when you're on a heater like that? Oh, it's heartbreaking. But got to have some. It just goes to show, I mean, your stars got to be your stars, but you got to have the support to go with it as well.
Yeah, considering the month that those two players have, it's really, really sad that we don't get to see them in playoff form. But unfortunately, it's got to be a full year effort. And like you said, they needed a little bit more. But let's go ahead and move on to the final player of the week nod for the American Hockey League. And that goes to Manitoba Moose forward Nicholas Jones. Has been selected as, again, the AHL Player of the Week for the period ending May 1st. He helped the Moose close out the regular season with a pair of rather convincing wins, totaling 5 points in 2 games. On Thursday, he opened the scoring and then added an assist later in the first, on the way to a 7-1 victory in the first of a 2-game set against Abbotsford in Abbotsford. And then Saturday afternoon's rematch, he registered a goal, 2 assists for his second career 3-point game as the Moose went on to blank the Canucks 6-0 in their final tune-up before the Calder Cup playoffs.
Couple tough losses for the Canucks there.
Especially at home, too. But now that we've talked about monthly awards, player awards, it's time to look at some end-of-season nods here. So first, we're going to look at the all-rookie team, and Jeremy has that roster for us.
I've got you all with the stacked all-rookie team. Guys, you're going to hear names on this list, and you're going to wonder how in the world they're rookies. I mean, we've talked about all these guys pretty frequently on the show. So obviously, we'll kind of just start going down this list. Goaltender, Dustin Wolf, the Stockton Heat, 46 games played. He had a winning record of 33-8-4, 233 goals against average, and a 924 save percentage. Rumor has it that's pretty good. And then we've got a couple of really stout defensemen out of the Pacific Division here on the all-rookie team. We've got Jack Rathbone from Abbotsford. Talked about him on the show. 37 games played, good for 40 points, 10 goals, 30 assists. A +7, 3 power play goals, 2 game-winning goals. Talk about a defenseman coming up clutch. Then we've got Jordan Spence of the Ontario Reign, 46 games played, 4 goals, 38 assists, 42 points, a +18. Although when you play for the Reign, you're probably going to find your plus pretty high this season. 2 power play goals and a whopping 24 power play assists. 24. Absolutely uncanny from the kid. And then we move on to our forward group. So Jacob Pelletier out of Stockton, 65 games played, almost a point per game pace, 27 goals, 35 assists, +21, 9 power play goals, 2 shorties, and 8 game-winning goals. Talk about clutch out of the rookie. Then we look to the Rochester Americans, a team that we've talked about all season as being a team that had a ton of really great young prospects. The first of which being J.J. Peterka. Played a little bit more of a full season than his counterpart that we'll get to in just a second for the Rochester Americans. 69 games played, everybody all at once.
Nice.
Thank you. 25 goals, 39 assists, good for 64 points. 3 power play goals and 3 game-winning goals, and then the man of the hour. It's his world, and we're all living in it. Jack Quinn of the Rochester Americans, 44 games played, 25 goals in those 44 games, 34 assists, good for 59 points in 44 games. A huge key to the Rochester Americans' success on the power play, good for 3rd in the league this year, scoring 10 power play goals, had a shorty, and had 6 game-winning goals in what was a really clutch season for the Amerks, and is a big reason why they're going to find themselves playing some meaningful hockey here over the course of the next week and maybe even longer.
Now we're going to turn to the all-star teams. Time to get some of the veterans in on this action. So Zach has the first all-star team list for us.
I mean, we say a little bit of veteran presence, but nothing beats a little bit of rookie presence as well. And that's going to be on our first all-star team as the goaltenders Dustin Wolf for the Stockton Heat. I mean, we kind of been pumping the tires of him all throughout the course of the season as well, and just how good he's been playing for the Stockton Heat. A big reason why they're in that number one position right now. His 924 save percentage, 2.33 goals against average. He's only lost 8 regulation games, won 33, of course. A really great start for him, but you got to look on the back end as well. You got Jordan Gross with the Colorado Eagles. He's been pretty well point per game player. And when you see 55 points up on that in 60 odd games, that's a really good number to have. And same with Jordan Spence, the same sort of deal. Looking at about 42 points there with 38 assists there and 4 goals. He's been absolutely phenomenal throughout the course of the season, especially for the Ontario Reign, who's had to keep up tight with a lot of strong teams in the Pacific Division. Your forward group, well, it's a Chicago heavy group for good reason. Stefan Noesen is going to be up there as well with 81 points throughout 68 games played, 12 power play goals, and 12 game-winning goals as well. He earns his spot in the forward position. Andrew Poturalski, how about his season that he's had, kind of thing? The points beyond belief for him, and definitely one of the league's best. 2 game-winning goals, 12 power play goals included in his nearly 100-point season for him, and or more actually. I think he did hit 100 in his final few games. And then TJ Tynan with the Ontario Reign closing us out with nearly 100 points as well. 46 power play assists throughout his tenure this year.
And as we turn our sights to the second all-star team, if you thought that the first all-star team was a little bit too Western Conference heavy, well, don't worry. We've got some Eastern Conference players for you on the second team. So, of course, we got to start in goal. Troy Grosenick for the Providence Bruins, 30 games played, 16-6-4 record, 2 right on the nose, 2 goals against average, .933 save percentage, and 3 shutouts. Turning to defense, someone a little close to my own heart, Jake Christensen from the Cleveland Monsters. In 61 games played, 13 goals, 32 assists for 45 points, 4 power play goals, really key on that quarterback role there, 1 game-winning goal. Then turning up to Toronto, it's Joseph Duzak, a defenseman, getting the honors there. 60 games played, 7 goals, 44 assists for 51 points, +3 rating, 24 power play assists. Wow, talk about a team player right there. 1 shorthanded goal. Then looking into forward, we're going to head back out to the West. Marty Ferk, we talked about him quite a bit on the podcast here, kind of up in the race for top honors for points pretty much all season. With the Reign, he played 58 games, 40 goals, 33 assists for 73 points, a +16. I mean, granted, you're going to rack up those pluses quite a bit playing on that Ontario squad, like you guys had mentioned. And then 15 power play goals, 7 game winners. Then turning to Bakersfield, Seth Griffith, 63 games played, 29 goals, 50 assists for 79 points, a +19 on Bakersfield. Pretty darn good there. 11 power play goals, 1 shorty, 5 game winners. And then Kiefer Sherwood from Colorado, 57 games played, 37 goals, 39 assists for 75 points, a +24, 13 power play goals, 6 game winning goals. I mean, obviously he was one of those key pieces in that Colorado resurgence. All right, now we're going to go ahead and look at some of the individual award winners. But I guess before then, we do have one team award, and then we'll look at some of the individuals. So I believe Zach has our team winner.
Yeah, well, it's the McGregor-Kilpatrick Trophy for the AHL's overall regular season champs. And of course, we've talked about him so much on this podcast. It's got to be the Chicago Wolves. There's no other doubt about it. First Kilpatrick Trophy was actually given to the Wolves, who've won 10 division titles and 2 Calder Cups since joining the league in 2001. A great season for the Chicago Wolves throughout this year.
Yeah, they pull it off. They find a way to do it.
Yeah, last game of the season, they pull off the win against Rockford, and they needed Bakersfield to beat Stockton. Sometimes you need a little bit of help. It's a good life lesson, and the Wolves got some from the Condors, and I think I speak for everyone where I would love to see a Chicago-Stockton Western Conference final, and if that's the case and they get that extra game in All-State, that I think that could, we're going to look back on that last day of the regular season and see maybe that's where the tide started to turn there.
No doubt. And I'll tell you when the tide really started to turn. It started to turn for the Rochester Americans when Jack Quinn returned to the lineup. And so naturally, there's nobody more deserving of the Red Garrett Award for the outstanding rookie in the AHL than Jack Quinn. We mentioned it earlier, his stats, 59 points in 44 games. I mean, come on now. It's just absolutely scary to imagine what would have happened if Buffalo wouldn't have taken him up for a few games and if he wouldn't have gotten hurt. The numbers of this kid would have been absolutely outstanding this year, and I always wonder what was, but now he's got a chance to show us what will be in the playoffs.
But enough about the Americans. I think we need to talk more about the Wolves because we clearly haven't spoken enough about Chicago this season. So let's get a little more, and we're going to go into some of the more individual awards that they won here, and starting off with the Harry Happ Holmes Memorial Award for the goaltender, which allows the fewest goals per game in the regular season. Qualified goaltender, which means they have to play in at least 25 games. And it's Alex Lyon because he has just fantastic this season. Sorry, Justin Wolf, you were great and everything. Sorry, Troy Grosnick, I know you were awesome as well. But at the end of the day, that's the Lyon. He went out there, he made all the stops and came out with the trophies. And congratulations to him. But like I said, we haven't talked enough about the Wolves, so let's keep on going. First off, we're going to go with Andrew Poturalski, who actually did hit the 100-point marker in the last game against the Rockford Ice Hogs. And with that 100th point, he's won the John B. Sullenberger Trophy as the leading point scorer for the second consecutive season. I mean, I don't want to say I kind of called it to start the year, but I kind of called it. So not a big deal. But we also got to give some love for his line mate, which is Stefan Noesen, taking home the Willie Marshall Award as the AHL's leading goal scorer. I mean, you've heard it all from me pumping these guys up all season long, and their play is spoken for itself. And now they're just cleaning up the hardware as we head into the playoffs here. But I don't know about you guys, but you gotta love it. But if you're tired of hearing about the Wolves, just in case you're tired about hearing them, they didn't win every award because the Fred T. Hunt Memorial Award went to Sam Anas of the Springfield Thunderbirds as the AHL player who best exemplifies the qualities of sportsmanship, determination, and dedication to hockey. Congratulations to him on winning this one.
I mean, that story for Sam, it's really special. It was parts of the season were pretty difficult for him just on an emotional level, I'm sure. I mean, and it was his first season in Springfield. He's ended up setting team records, 44 assists, 64 points, led his team in scoring for the third consecutive season, reaching the 20 goal mark for the third time. But the true highlight of that, and probably one of the reasons why he won this award, was he did score in a game on March 5th during the Pink in the Rink night. And it was the first time he had participated in a cancer awareness game since his mother had passed away from breast cancer in 2020. But still, after overcoming that kind of adversity, he was still named the alternate captain, skated in all but one game, only accumulated 12 minutes in penalties, just a class showing all around from Sam Anas, and well deserving of that, trying to overcome all that and still putting up amazing numbers on a season. All right, so now that we've gone through all of the awards, we do have a couple of of news pieces to go over. So first, a coaching change that's going to be taking place after a lot of speculation. And we went over this a little bit more in detail on this week's Monsters Musings podcast. But Cleveland Monsters head coach Mike Eaves will be stepping away from his bench duties. It was actually announced late in the afternoon on the finale of the Monsters season. Now, Eaves has served as the head coach for the past 3 seasons, taking over duties as the 6th coach in franchise history on June 18th, 2019. This was a season that didn't go the way that he had planned at all. Just a lot of adversity, a lot of challenges that he had to overcome. He was unable to be down on the bench at all this season. All of it potentially, again, I don't want to speculate, but a lot of it, I think, culminating into this decision. So Cleveland, the first team to be officially in the head coach hunt.
Yeah, and some more departures in the AHL. Chris Bourque has announced his retirement on Saturday. Probably one of the most prolific AHL players, hanging up his skates after 17 years as a pro career. Most of his career was spent in the AHL, skating 794 regular season games with the Portland Pirates, Hershey Bears, Providence Bruins, as well as 19 players ahead of him have been elected into the AHL Hall of Fame. Bourque also sits 12th with 495 assists and tied for 40th with 251 goals. Bourque, who is 36 years old, won the AHL MVP honors in 2015 and 16, and capturing the scoring title in 2011 and 12 for twice, and he did that again in 15-16. 3 Calder Cup champions. Chips rings for him with 2006, 2009, 2010, 1 postseason MVP 2010 as well, a 2018 U.S. Olympian who also played in a record-tying 6 AHL All-Star Classics, 09, 12, 15, 16, 17, and 18. He was also the first AHL All-Star to have 3 times as well. In addition to his regular season scoring, Bourque was the AHL's all-time leader in playoff assists with 82 and ranks 4th with 117, second most games played with 133 in the Calder Cup playoff history. On a personal note, I remember seeing him when he was down in St. John's a couple of times. He didn't. You'd always see him come in and play against them, and he always had so much skill. You could see it when he was skating around the ice. You know, not often that you can kind of see a player weave in and out through your defense and then take that candidating shot. It's an absolute laser. There's always a bit of mustard, and you could always see it. So, congrats on a beautiful career.
So, surefire Hall of Famer is what you're telling me when you're reading off all of those points. I mean, incredible, and the guy getting it done. Regular season, postseason, everywhere in between. You kind of wonder what was like. I think he was kind of a player born in a bit of born in the wrong era. I think if he was coming through in the NHL of today, then you're looking at a guy who might have been viewed as always too undersized to play in the national, and he's tearing it up in the AHL, but no NHL franchise is going to want to take a flyer out on a player like that. Well, maybe things are different, but I mean, for what it was and for what he is just a remarkable hockey player from top to bottom. And congratulations, Chris, on just an absolutely stellar career there.
He enjoyed such a long and storied career, now hanging up the skates and wishing him nothing but the best moving forward. But now, guys, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of our show here. Are you guys ready to talk playoffs?
I was born ready.
Yeah.
Been wanting to talk about playoffs this October.
So what we're going to do here is every round that is going to be starting this basically between now and next week that we have dates for, that we have matchups for. We're going to be doing previews of them for you now. We're just going to go like usual, Atlantic, North, Central, Pacific. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So first of all, our very first one is going to be Atlantic Division first round action, where 3rd seed Providence Bruins are taking on 6th seed Bridgeport Islanders. Now, this is a series that already has one game in. That was played on Monday night in Providence. By the time you guys hear this, this series may well be decided. Maybe. These first rounds are best of 3. Game 2 is taking place Wednesday night, May 4th at Bridgeport at 7 o'clock. So if the Islanders win, the series is done. If Bridgeport wins, then they're going to go into the best of 3 on Friday, May 6th at Providence at 7:05. So we're going to kind of have an open discussion here on a few points for every single series. So first of all, I want to know who you guys think the potential series MVP might be for these two teams.
Kind of alluded to it when you're looking at like the first and second all-star teams, where you get all of the heavy firepower is out west. I mean, at least for terms of individual scoring. I'm kind of cheating a little bit here, but you saw Corey Schneider tying a career best in saves in game 1, leading Bridgeport to a 2-1 victory in overtime. And so, I mean, you got to he's a guy who's been a veteran in this league for many years. He's a veteran in the NHL for many years. He's got the experience in postseason and regular season hockey. He's been around the game for a while, and he knows what it takes to show up and to come out with a win in these big scenarios where it's do or die, especially in a 3-game series. It's literally do or die. There's just no room for error whatsoever. And on the other side, I mean, I don't know how you don't go with Troy Grosnick. I mean, second team AHL All-Star. Guy's been at the top of the goals against stat all year long, and this is going to be a series where it's going to be 2-1, 1-0 for each and every game. It's just who makes that one mistake, and that's really going to boil down to who advances in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. I mean, it comes down to goaltending in this matchup. And, you know, as some of our listeners in Providence might also have to say, it also is going to come down to discipline, and it's going to come down to some other key factors that might have cost the Bruins the first game in the matchup. You know, you're looking at a lot of low-scoring games in this. Troy Grosnick is going to come back. I'm predicting a Game 2 shutout. I'm saying it right here, right now. This one's going to go to Game 3.
Well, and it was such a tightly contested contest. And, you know, I had the privilege of covering it last on Monday night kind of thing, and being able to kind of see firsthand what is really going on with this series. And the meat and the potato is Monday night's game was all Corey Schneider. No doubt about it, where he was able to really steal the show. And there was a lot of opportunities where the Providence Bruins were unable to get really any, like they were pouring quality shots throughout the second period. I think at one point they had 21 shots in one period. And so when you kind of look at that, but you have also to kind of look at the overtime. That's when we never really seen anything from the Providence offense. Like at no point were they kind of taking any kind of quality shots. They had the zone time in overtime, but they weren't able to capitalize. Long story short, for Bridgeport, if they're going to win, and if they've already won, you already know that Corey Schneider has stood on his head once again and played really well, because there's so many good pieces when it comes to the Providence Bruins offense. And for me, I looked at Lauku in the last game in Game 1, and if he continues to play that way, this could be a totally different series coming in to Game 2 and Game 3. So for the Bruins, they're going to have to start relying on their offense, and of course it's got to go the other way, and the Islanders got to look at Corey Schneider.
Yeah, and how about Poturalski getting his first ever AHL point? You know, the Finnish prospect for the Islanders, making his presence known.
I just want to say I am in total agreement with you guys saying that the goaltenders are going to be huge here. So I actually did our series preview article on this series, and here's a stat for you. When facing each other over the course of the entire season, Bridgeport scored 38 goals on Providence. Guess how many Providence scored against Bridgeport? 38.
Oh, hey.
So, in the record in the going into it, I mean, this was so close. Like, Bridgeport was 6-4-0-2 against Providence. Providence 6-6-0 0-0. I have a feeling this one's going to go into game 3. But what I want to know is, and Zach kind of already alluded to it with Corey Schneider, but I want to know for Providence, though, what went right for them to win if they win this series?
Well, I think that a lot of things had to kind of go right. And I think that them winning the series is not impossible. And that just means continuing to get quality shots on Corey Schneider. At some point, you're going to have him crack. And we kind of looked at the second period where it was just continuous after continuous shots. There wasn't a whole lot going on. So for me, I kind of want to continue to see quality shots for the Bruins.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think similarly, like, I think when you look at it, Providence to win this is going to have to find the back of the net, and they're going to have to do it far more than once per game, which is going to be a task. I mean, you can't rely on Grosnick's been good, like you mentioned, but you can't rely on your goaltender to bail you out of every situation here. And if they can't put up more than one against the Bridgeport team that barely eked themselves into the playoffs, then they're out of luck, and they've got to do it twice now.
But Providence, in terms of the Atlantic Division, has only scored more goals than Lehigh Valley. That's it. That's the bar, and Providence is just right above that. That's not a good look. That probably can't have you feeling. Well, I'm just gonna say that Grosnick's just gonna have to stop everything. That's really gonna be it, and you're going to have to find some kind of squeaker, some kind of, I tried to pass it out through the slot and it bounced off a defenseman's skate and beat Schneider. Something like that, some kind of playoff hockey goal that goes your way, the right bounce, guy makes a mistake and you capitalize. Because I get, you're going to have to generate offense, but this is a team that hasn't done it all year. So I'm not really looking for it to start now against a veteran goalie. Grosnick's gonna have to outplay Schneider. That's how you win this series, and that's really, I think, it begins and ends in the net.
Well, that kind of tells me some of your viewpoints, or what may be your viewpoints heading into this next question. What about Bridgeport? If they end up winning game 2, what went right?
Corey Schneider. Corey Schneider went right.
Basically.
Corey Schneider, but I got a feeling this might be Atu Ratu's coming out party at the same time. I mean, he's a guy who obviously at the end of the season didn't really factor into the offense, but as I said, he's coming over from Finland, playing in a grown man's league over there in the Liga, to now take that experience over in the playoff hockey. I mean, I get that, there might be some kind of adjustments, but at the same time, when a guy's good like that, a guy loves playing in the moment, guy loves stepping up to that challenge, he gets a couple points, and that might be enough to bury Providence with their vaunted goal scoring that they've had all season. And Corey Schneider.
I'm kind of looking at Ledoux. I'm looking at Hegelson. I'm looking at Grand Hutton and their defensive squad that they kind of have. And that's going to be kind of one of the big keys, is if they can kind of shut down this team. And that's one thing that they kind of did in overtime that worked for the Island, is that they were able to shut down the Bruins. The Bruins had lots of puck possession. They had some great passing, but they didn't have a lane. So if they can continue to have a lane and continue to have some shooting opportunities, that will be the key to success for the Bridgeport Islanders.
All right, so finally, what is your prediction? We already know Bridgeport's up 1-0 in this series, best of 3. Who do you have taking it all the way?
I like the idea of a 1-0 Providence win in game 2, just for Bridgeport to take another 2-1 win in game 3 to kind of take this one. I'm going for the upset.
Yeah, I have to agree. I got to go Bridgeport. It just feels like, I mean, it feels disingenuous. If you'd asked me before the series started, I would have said Providence 100 times over. But at this point, best of 3, you got to go with Bridgeport.
Game 2 is going to be lopsided. It's going to be the Bruins, and game 3 is going to go to overtime, and it's going to be another tightly wound game.
But who's going to take it?
Oh, it's going to be the Bruins.
All right. All right.
I like it.
We got We got 2 for the Isles, 1 for the Bruins. Now, our next series, we're going to stick in the Atlantic Division. In the first round, we're going to have the 4th-seeded Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Penguins versus the 5th-seeded Hershey Bears. We have a special guest. You've seen him before here on the Holy GrAHL podcast. Corey Swartz is back, our resident, pretty much Bears expert, but you've been covering kind of all of the Pennsylvania teams at one point or another this season. So he is coming on to lend his expertise. So Corey, first, thank you so much for joining us again at the Holy GrAHL.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have the playoffs back finally.
100%. 100%. So can you kind of give us a quick overview? I know you have a wonderful series preview piece here at fieldpasshockey.com, but if you could just kind of give us a quick overview about what the matchup was like between the Pens and the Bears so far, or at least back in the regular season.
Sure. Yeah. So it's been kind of a tale of two halves so far. The teams played, I think, 10 of their 12 games between the months of December and February. And, they have only played each other twice in the last, 2 months, 2.5 months at least at this point. And it was kind of a tale of two halves. So they played a number of times in December. And, when the COVID issues and taxi squads were still prevalent and a really big, pervading issue, the Bears kind of ran roughshod on the Penguins for a bit there. They won 7 straight games. Has never happened between the two teams in their lengthy history of rivalry between the two teams. But it got a lot closer as things went on. With Wilkes-Barre, particularly the acquisition of, I believe, Alex Nylander was the big one mid-season for the Penguins that sort of started to signal a turnaround. But the two teams didn't play each other for a couple of months. So all of a sudden, we had these two big playoff-type matchups between the Bears and the Penguins back in, the beginning stages of April. And Wilkes-Barre, to their credit, played the Bears really well defensively and took both those games. And so it's kind of a tale of two trends because the Bears have been trending down while Wilkes-Barre, battled their way out of the basement of the division to finish 4th, which is an outstanding achievement for them. So it's really going to be a story of which team, kind of plays their style, their ideal style here that we haven't seen in a while. And for the Bears, I mean, the biggest thing they have going for them is they got Joe Snively back for this series exclusively. He's on a long-term conditioning assignment, so he can only play in these 3 games, and he's going to go up to Washington again. But 38 points in 35 games before he was recalled earlier this season. One of the AHL's leading scorers at the time, I believe. Can't say enough about what having him back's going to do for some of the guys that have struggled, especially some of the top guns like Mike Scarbosa, Garrett Pilon. He's often a trio with them when he's been in Hershey, so that's going to be a key to watch. And for the Penguins, I mean, they're going to be looking to play that successful, stifling, low-scoring Wilkes-Barre brand of hockey that's really kind of come to them here over the last, couple of months that's spelled their success.
So when we kind of talk about the Hershey Bears and Washington, I know for anybody who hasn't really been following them all throughout the season or really closely, Hershey has really been riddled with the injury bug over the past couple of months. And even now, Washington is going into this playoffs with a couple of injuries as well. How does that kind of shape up the series for the Bears?
Well, it leaves a lot of room for them to experiment, I think. Having Snively back is great, but they're also missing, and they have been missing, the likes of Shane Gersich, Cody Franson, more recently, in addition to, long-term injuries like Brian Pino and Matt Molson. And even guys on Washington recall that aren't coming back. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby was one of their leading scorers for good reason. Had an overtime winner against the Penguins back at the beginning of December when I was up in Wilkes-Barre, which was pretty cool. But, he went up and he's not coming back due to the waiver rules and all that good stuff and wasn't made eligible. So him and Snively are obviously huge losses, but they've been experimenting. They have NCAA players, Ethan Frank and Julian Naprovic, have been, players they've come to rely on here really a lot too. And, they just signed a couple of players to amateur tryouts that are Caps prospects, Bear Hughes and Bogdan Trinev, I believe is the other one who just signed with Washington yesterday. So, those players could factor into the lineup. I know Hershey's probably going to want to, ice as ideal and good of a lineup as you can. And, if the kids get a shot, why not? Honestly, they're probably going to be here next year and play a big role then. So, getting some experience will be good for them too if that comes to it.
All right, so we are going through and giving kind of our picks and opinions here on every single playoff series that's going to be kicking off here within the next week. So, of course, Wilkes-Barre-Scranton, Hershey, they're going to be hitting the ice here. Later on in the week, they're one of the later starts when it comes to getting the series underway. And I know you've mentioned a few names already, but who do you feel could be the potential series MVP for both the Pens and the Bears?
Well, I think for both teams, I don't think it's going to be any just one player. It's usually been a team effort between the two of them. For Wilkes-Barre, I really like Valtteri Puustinen. He's come on the scene and done fantastic things for Wilkes-Barre. And he always has a knack of scoring against the Bears, too, it seems like. And there's always one Wilkes-Barre player each season that kind of takes that role there. And, I mean, as much as I, reluctantly give this award up, I mean, Tommy Napier has been great at times against the Bears too. He pitched a shutout the last time the two teams played. Has been in net after kind of having a difficult start to his AHL career against the Bears. Has really rebounded well. And conversely for Hershey, I mean, I would go with the theme of goaltending. Phoenix Copley is going to be the guy with Zack Power up in Washington as their third goalie, which is a fun little habit that I touched on in the preview there a little bit that Washington's had. But it's Copley's net. I think he's going to, he's one of the top ranked goaltenders in the AHL for good reason. And for the Bears, I mean, it's going to be whichever one of their forwards steps up the most. It could be Mike Scarbosa, I think, is due for a big breakout. So I'm going to go with him on that one. He had 3 assists in the season finale. And, I think he's slowly, after dealing with injuries and being called up for a good chunk of the year, he's finding his game here, I think, and getting back up to that 30-goal pace that he set in 2018-19, I believe. So, he's going to be my pick to get going here.
If Wilkes-Barre-Scranton wins, what went right?
Well, they stifled Hershey's offense very well. And that was one of the themes of the last 2 times they played them, is that they kept the puck out of their net. Their goaltender came up with big saves, and, they found a way to win. I mean, I think the first game in April, it was a controversial penalty call in overtime that set up the Penguins in overtime, and their power play, which has struggled. It's one of their weaker spots for both teams, truly. It came through in that instance for them, and they scored and won that game in overtime. So, they held Hershey off the board on the last game between the two teams, and, they were able to walk away with an overtime, or I believe it was a 3-0 shutout, actually. With a shorthanded goal that led the way for that game. So for them, it's going to be playing stifling defense and playing good offense and getting the goals where they can. I think that's going to be the difference.
And I think that's, you kind of alluded to it a little earlier too. Wilkes-Barre-Scranton is kind of a team that you can't really sleep on, right? I can't think of how many times we looked at Wilkes-Barre down at the bottom of the division or whatnot, and kind of rolled our eyes a little bit and said, they just can't seem to get anything going. But now that they are, it's almost seeming like they're becoming a juggernaut, right? And it's going to see how far that Michelin man can run before he finally runs out of gas.
Well, for Wilkes-Barre, they need to get back on track because they did lose 4 games in a row to end the regular season there too. And actually, interestingly, despite the fact that it was already clinched, only got home ice advantage on a tiebreaker, believe it or not. So, the Bears, unfortunately, their loss in the last 2 games, it would have set up for an interesting final week of the regular season extra. But of course, the Bears lost those games, and it was set in stone by that point. So, but yeah, for Wilkes-Barre, they need to get back on track. A couple of disappointing losses, especially to one of the lesser teams in Lehigh Valley, especially at the end of the season. But Felix Sandstrom played out of his mind in that game as well. So. The effort was there for sure, but they need to get back on track, as do the Bears, as the Bears have lost a number of games in a row, 2 games in a row, but, multiple if you go back further than that. So it's both teams that are also looking to right the ship in a sense as well.
Okay, so I have the same question, but replace the Pens with Hershey. If they win, what went right for them?
Well, I think for the Bears, it's truly that the offense was able to break through. And I think having Snively, provided he's able to play at his level that he was at prior to his recall and his injury, because he played great up in Washington during the time he was there. But, I think he's going to help jumpstart the offense. I love to see them mix in a couple of the kids here, like Bear Hughes is a guy I'm really big on. I mean, come on, it's a guy named Bear playing on the Hershey Bears. I mean, you can't beat that. But I'd like to see some of the the young talent, whether that's Ethan Frank or any of the other young guys, get on the board and contribute here. I think only the Providence Bruins scored less goals than the Bears did among teams that made the playoffs. So, it's one of those key stats where I keep harping on and be like, they need to score goals and they need to get them now. And, it hasn't happened here the last couple of months. And for them, that's really going to be the point of turnaround, is that they're going to break through and, do so in a major way here for sure.
And like you kind of said before as well, I mean, this is so much of a team that has to kind of build off of each other. They don't have they have a lot of new faces into the lineup. They have a couple of injuries, like you kind of said, and getting players shipped down from Washington is certainly going to be a big factor in this series as well. Like, that's one thing. Not a whole lot of teams can say that they have players being shipped down from their parent clubs, and especially for, I guess, all of this series as well. If he's going to be down for 3 games at a conditioning stint, that's the full series right there. So that'll be a big step for Hershey as well.
And that's the key. If Washington loses in their series, the only player that Hershey could see come down is Connor McMichael, which is, that would be huge, especially after they lose Joe Snively. After what, McMichael's body of work last season, he was special to watch for sure. And, but for them, it's just kind of, current objective is to survive at this point. And Hershey's roster is insanely young this season. They lost almost all their veterans and core guys, losing Molson, Pinho. Those guys are great examples. They have some great guys there that can get the job done, I think. Mason Morelli is one guy that's, they picked up for nothing on an AHL deal, and he's been phenomenal for them as well. So, I'd like to see them break through with some of the scoring, get rewarded for some of the hard effort they put in here recently.
All right, and we have one final question for you here. Of course, we got to ask now. It's a best of 3 series, so just one team's got to take 2 of these games. Which team is going to do it, and will it go to all 3 games, do you think?
Well, it's a good question. I think it has a solid chance of going to 3 games just because these 2 teams are very similar. But I'd like to think that Hershey's going to get back to their ways, they were in December, where they were finding ways to win these clutch games. Having Snively back is going to be an immeasurable difference, I think, in their play. And I think it's going to be Hershey in 3.
And respectively, I know that this is going to go to 3. And I think that this is going to be one of the tightest series in the playoffs this year. I think that they're pretty well evenly matched in a lot of areas. You have your highs, you have your lows for both these teams. But I'm going to say it's going to be the Penguins in 3 games.
All right. Well, 50-50 shot for you guys being right here. We got 1 pick in the Pens, 1 pick in the Bears. I think that entire first round of the Atlantic Division is going to be tight the entire way. But in case you wanted to check it out, if you're over in that part of Pennsylvania, game 1 will be Friday, May 6th. Hershey will be visiting with Wilkes-Barre-Scranton at Zach's favorite start time, 7:05. Game 2, Sunday, May 8th. At Hershey at 5:00. And then, if necessary, game 3 will be Monday, May 9th in Wilkes-Barre-Scranton at, again, 7:05. So, Corey, thank you so much once again for joining us. We always love having you on and value your expertise here. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Now it's time to move on to the North Division for a series that I know Jeremy is going to be watching very closely. And if I may say so myself, I'm going to be too. We have the 4th seed Belleville Senators versus the 5th seed Rochester Americans. Game 1 will be on Wednesday, May the 4th. Belleville will be in Rochester at 7:05. Game 2 will be Friday, May 6th. Rochester hitting the road for Belleville at 7:00. And then, if necessary, game 3 also in Belleville on Sunday, May 8th at 3:00. So, who are the series MVP for each team? I have a feeling we're going to be hearing about some rookies here once again for Rochester.
I mean, that feels easy. It feels easy to lean that way. Because of course Jack Quinn is going to matter a lot to this matchup. Of course, JJ Peterka, Peyton Krebs, I mean, not a rookie necessarily, but those guys are going to matter a lot. But for me personally, like, it's going to come down to whether or not this team is able to keep Belleville off of the board. And if they can do that, it's got to be none other than Aaron Dell, who's going to be the MVP for the Rochester Americans in this series. Believe it or not, Aaron Dell was pretty much the only Rochester goaltender that had any success against Belleville this season, actually going a perfect 3-0, posting a .926 save percentage and a .233 goals against average. So he's really, I mean, you look at the other guys, look at UPL, not great stat line. You've got, Matt Rouse, and you got those guys in there for these matchups, but Aaron Dell is going to be huge for the Amherst.
So I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path here. I'm going to go with Sean Malone. Sean Malone was a clutch performer for Chicago, and I covered the Wolves last year. And he was the kind of guy who kind of went under the radar when they had the big guns going out there with Tomasino, with Tanner Jeannot when he was with the team, with Dominic Bach. All their big scorers would go out, wear the team down, and then, you're trying to catch your breath, and then here's Sean Malone with that savvy veteran presence. And I mean, sometimes when we love the talent of the rookies here, but everyone knows in the playoffs it gets tighter checking. There's not as much room to make plays. There's not as much time to move the puck. And, it's sometimes some of these young skaters, they can kind of, you grip the stick a little too hard and you start overthinking it because you don't have that space that was there before. But these savvy vets that have been around the league for years and years and know how to play the pro game, these are the guys that you got to kind of lean on to, when you're in a rut and it's you're in overtime, who's going to come and break through for you there. So you get the spotlight on Peterka and Quinn, but I think it's going to be a guy like Sean Malone's going to have a big game in a game 2 or a game 3 that just might push the Amherst into the next round.
And as much as I love a bit of veteran experience, especially in the playoffs, but they're really going to be relying on rookie Jack Quinn. And I think that's going to be the guy. And I say this simply because this is happening not far away from his hometown of Ottawa, Ontario. And so that's going to be a big thing that it might actually put a bit of a fire underneath him. And we've kind of seen the way that he's been able to play in the regular season. We've seen Rochester without him. We've seen Rochester with him. And there's definitely 2 different Rochester teams when he's on that bench. So I'm looking at Jack Quinn all the way.
So how about Belleville? That was pretty heavy on the Rochester side, but we got 2 sides here. I mean, personally, I'm looking at guys like Andrew Agazzino, Jake Lucchini. So with that being said, guys, if Belleville is able to win this one, again, this is a best of 3. What happened to Belleville for that to happen?
Goaltending and shutting down the big guns. I mean, it kind of seems obvious a bit, but Rochester is a team that doesn't really play a shutdown, kind of grind it out. They want to win 5-4, and if Belleville's going to come out and take this one in 3 games or 2, either way, they're gonna have to keep Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka and Peyton Krebs off the scoreboard, at least the best that they can. I don't know if it can be done for 120, 180 minutes, but the best that they can possibly do. If you're going to let Jack Quinn and Peterka run all over you, this might be a quick series for Belleville. But if Mads Sogard can come up and play like the touted prospect he is, and if this Belleville team can shut him down, then I think that's kind of the keys to the series win here.
I think it's special teams. Like I look at Rochester, the 3rd best power play in the league, but Belleville's got the 6th best penalty kill. And if Belleville can find a way to shut down the Amherst on the power play, if they can find a way to stay out of the box, I think Belleville sets themselves up pretty well for success against this Rochester Americans team. Like you said, Andrew, they win games by scoring goals. Best way to beat them, don't let them score. And a really good way to keep them from scoring is to keep that really talented, really lethal power play off the ice.
And for me, there's got to be a lot of Red Bull on the defensive end. These guys are quick, and they got to be able to keep up with them. They got to be able to move their feet. defensively, the Belleville Senators need to be able to keep up with the Rochester Americans, and that's going to be the key.
Rochester, if they won, what happened?
They were able to keep Belleville from scoring 4 goals a game. Like that to me is like,
Fair.
if they can keep Belleville, if they have to shut down Igor Sokolov and Dick Lucchini. Like they have to. If they let those guys run amok against their blue line, it's over. It's done. Keep them to, and this is going to be a tall order, keep them to 3 goals or less a game. And I think you'll find a way to win this series.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with that. I was going to say they've won if they take each one by the score of 5-4. So if Rochester can do that much, then yeah, if they can win 2 games like that, they'll have moved on.
Likewise, it's got to come from goaltending, and that's going to be the key part of it. Aaron Dell has been a key fixture on that team.
So, Jeremy, I just have a quick question for you regarding a stat that I saw while looking at this series.
Yeah.
This is quite fascinating, and I want to know why this is. So, when Rochester is out shooting their opponents, they have a record of 8-15-2-0. However, when they are being outshot by their opponents, they have a record of 29-14-5-2. What in the world is up with that? They win way more when they're getting outshot?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's because you've got guys like Jack Quinn and JJ Petrarca. Michael Mersch is somebody who we haven't talked about so far in this preview. Like guys who just score at a really high clip, and you don't necessarily need to get a ton of shots on goal to make it happen. But, I think those guys know that when they get their chances, they've got to take them, because there's a chance that Aaron Dell, that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, that whoever is behind them is probably getting peppered the entire game. And it doesn't surprise me to hear how much larger that number is, too, the number of games that the Amherst have been outshot. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. So, yeah, they've got to take advantage of every shot they've got, and these guys, they find a way to do it.
Well, it looks like it's trending towards that Michael Hauser might be staying with them, as his Cincinnati Cyclones are currently losing with 20 minutes left in Game 7 against the Toledo Walleye down in the ECHL. So if you're a Michael Hauser fan in Rochester, you might be seeing him around for just a little bit longer. But guys, finally, what are your predictions for this one? Personally, I would love to see Rochester win this one, and I think they could do it. It's just going to take 3 games for me.
I would love to see it. I would love to see the star power break through and move on to the next round and give Utica a run for their money. I mean, I think it would be great. I just don't see this team shutting Belleville down. They've given up goals at such an alarming rate. Sorry, Jeremy, but I think Belleville's taking this one. I don't know if it's going to take 3 or 2. Maybe Rochester gets enough firepower in one game, but I think Belleville's a really well-coached team. I just think that they're going to find a way to slow the Wonder Kids down just enough.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is out of the 8 matchups this season, 6 of these matchups have been decided by a goal, 4 of which the game-tying or the game-winning goal came in the last 2 minutes of the game. These matchups have been crazy tight all year long. And I got to think that when you add Peyton Krebs into the lineup, and when you rely on Aaron Dell, who went undefeated against Belleville this season, I'm looking at Rochester, and I know that might be a little bit of beat bias, but I think they're going to find a way to do it. I think both of these teams, regardless, are licking their chops to a very vulnerable Utica. And I think that, the way that Rochester had to claw their way into the playoffs after some ugly losses to Cleveland, I think they're going to come out swinging Game 1 in Rochester. It's going to be a lot of fun.
For me, it's got to be the clean sweep, and it's going to be Rochester. I think that they actually have the guns to do it, and I think that the way that they've played in the past month, call me crazy, they got the guns, and I do think that Aaron Dell is going to be the biggest difference maker in this series.
All right, now we're going to go ahead, and this is part of the weird part of the scheduling for the AHL's playoffs right now, because we're going to be having 2 rounds going at the exact same time. While you have a handful of teams in that play-in round, that best of 3, we're also going to be having 2 division semifinal series starting this week too. Some way we'll keep it all straight, but we're going to go and look at the first of those 2, which is a best of 5 division semifinal series in the North Division between the number 2 Syracuse Crunch and the number 3 Laval Rocket. Now, games 1 and 2 will be in Syracuse on Friday and Saturday at 7 o'clock. Games 3 and 4 if it's needed, will be in Laval, first on Thursday at 7, and then on Saturday at 3. And then if game 5 is needed, they'll head back to Syracuse on Tuesday, May 17th at 7 o'clock. So, okay, guys, who are your potential MVPs for each team? And I must say, there's quite a few to choose from out of these rosters.
It's going to be a little bit of a cop-out, y'all, but I'm going to have to go with Max Lagace, and I'm going to have to go with Jean-Sebastien D in Laval.
I love both of those picks. I was kind of trending the same way, so I'm going to kind of do what I did with the Rochester series. And over in Syracuse, I'm looking at Anthony Richard, who, hey, guess what? Another former Wolf. And he was just a monster on the penalty kill in Chicago, and is going to be doing much the same over there in Syracuse. And if you can pot a couple of those shorties like he did for the Wolves, then that could just totally flip this over on its head. And we know Laval is very potent with their own power play. So, yeah, with Riley Nash called up to Tampa Bay and just a really big catalyst to what this team was able to accomplish in that second half of the season, they need contributions all up and down the lineup. And Anthony Richard is going to be part of that. And again, a short series, you're going to need there's got to be a hero. And it's not always the top line guy. So I'm going with Tony.
And I'm looking at Gabriel Dumont on the Syracuse Crunch. And I say this only because not only has he produced all season long, back in 2017, the last time the Syracuse Crunch went up against a Montreal organization, he was actually on the ice for the double OT winner that would actually move them on later on in the series. And that would be the end of the days in St. John's and whatnot. So he was on the ice for that. He played for the Montreal organization for years, turned around, stabbed their back. He's going to do it again. Meanwhile, for the Laval Rocket, I'm looking at Harvey Pernard. He's really been a guy that you kind of see all up and down the ice. This is one of the key players that they'll be looking at, and he's such a hardworking player. You always see him down there fighting him with these scrums, fighting him with these battles, always looking for positioning, and that will be one of the key factors is finding opening ice, finding the position, and clearing the lane to score a goal.
So Syracuse had a really hot finish to the season, managing to sneak into that number 2 seed. If they win, what went right?
I think Lagace did what Lagace does, and he wins big games, big scenarios all the time. And I know I keep saying it, your goalie has to be your best player in the playoffs. Well, I wouldn't keep saying it if it wasn't true. So I love what he's been able to do. And again, the absence of Riley Nash just means so much more that each one of those goals that he stops has to be that much larger. So I think Syracuse is really gonna have to rely on its defense, shut down a potent Laval squad that can certainly put pucks in the net. And I mean, we pumped him up as the goalie of the month, and just if he carries that kind of play over, it's going to be really tough for the Rocket here.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that the Crunch really are going to have to worry about ensuring that blue line is really tight in this matchup. Like you said, Laval can score. They're not afraid of putting the puck in the back of the net, and this feels like the kind of matchup. Like if this is a traditional kind of hockey game or a playoff series, I should say, I think it plays into the Crunch's hands. And so, kind of control the tempo, make Laval play your game, and if they can do that, I feel pretty good about their chances in this series.
And for me, I got to kind of look at the goaltending as well. So often we kind of talk about the back end having to be the specialty part of this. At 29 years old, you know that he's kind of had a little bit of experience now. He's going to be a little bit more of a calmer presence in net, which is something that you really want in the American Hockey League. You want someone who's going to be calm in the goal. And we see that all season long. He's calm, cool, and collective. And this is going to be what we're going to see.
All right, let's go ahead and flip it and reverse it. Laval. If Laval wins, what happened?
I think that Kevin Poulin outplayed Lagace. I mean, I know it's a cop-out. I just kind of flipped it over on the other side. But when you have a goalie of that pedigree that you're going up against, your goalie has to at least – okay, I won't say he outplayed him, but he at least met the challenge. He saw how well – Lagace was playing on one end, and Poulin said, anything you can do, I can do at least just as good. Maybe not better, but just as good. And that's all the Rocket need. I really think top to bottom, without Riley Nash, that the Rocket have the better skater lineup in terms of forwards and defensemen. But it's again, I already said what I need to say about the Nets. So Poulin has to step up and at least match the level of Lagace. And then it's anyone's game at that point.
And for me, I kind of got to look at the chemistry for the Laval Rocket. These guys are able to pass it around. These guys are able to find that open lane. And they do that by working together, moving down low, moving up high when they need to. And that's going to be a big part of this series is how are you going to be able to move the puck in the offensive zone? And if they continue to do that, continue hammering it away. I mean, we talk so much about the defense, but it's something that has to come from the offensive well. And I think that they have the team to be able to do that.
All right, real quick, what are your predictions?
If Riley Nash was there, probably call this different. I'm going to say Laval in 4.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you are, Andrew. I'm going to go Laval in 4.
So let's go ahead and move on to the Central Division, Andrew's neck of the woods, where we're going to look at a play-in series. The 4th-seeded Rockford Ice Hogs against the 5th-seeded Texas Stars. So in game 1, it's another one that's going to be done. At least one of the games is going to be done by the time you guys even hear this. That's the lovely part of us having to record on Tuesdays and you hearing it on Thursdays. But game 1 in Rockford. Actually, the entire 3-game series will be in Rockford. So it'll be Wednesday the 4th and Friday the 6th, both at 8 o'clock. And then if needed, May 7th, game 3 for 7 o'clock. Now for game 2, Texas will have the home team designation for the last change, but they don't get the true home environment. I don't know what is up with all of that, but I know it's not the only team this is happening to. It's the AHL. What can we say? So real quick, guys, just give me your names, potential series MVPs, both teams.
You gotta Rockford. It starts and ends with Lucas Reichel. I mean, he's the rookie wonder for that Ice Hog squad. And if he's scoring, they're doing well. If he's not scoring, they're not doing so hot. So you got to go with him. And for Texas, I love Matt Murray, not that Matt Murray, but the other Matt Murray. But I think I'm gonna go with Ty Dellandrea. Now, I was speaking with Tyler Weber about this, our resident Stars correspondent here at Field Pass Hockey, and he loves this kid's game and its ability to he plays that postseason hockey style, that in your face muck and grind that's gonna just throw the Ice Hogs off their rhythm, that real aggressive forecheck. I think he's got all the tools to really be a difference maker here in the series.
For me, it's got to come from Curtis McKenzie and like you said, Lucas Reichel. Both of these guys, there's no doubt that these guys are going to be on the ice together. This is your classic, Guy Lafleur out there, Don Cherry kind of moment, right? Like you got to be all over this guy because I think that this is the way that this is going to be. Because I believe that both of these guys really do have a good offensive prowess. They're able to kind of do things when needed, and that's going to be the biggest part of this is shutting down these guys, and they're going to be the stars of the show.
If Texas is going to have to win this one, I know I kind of mentioned it earlier, but Matt Murray has to be Matt Murray. And again, not that Matt Murray, but the other Matt Murray. No, he has to be that Matt Murray. He has to be this kid that's come in and has kind of lit a fire on the Stars team and has really given them some really dependable goaltending that I don't want to say they haven't gotten from Adam Scheel, but they kind of haven't gotten from Adam Scheel.
Right.
And you already know how I feel about goalies. So I think Matt Murray's got to be that Matt Murray for Texas to win this.
Yeah, and I think, the way you lose it is if he's the other Matt Murray. No, but yeah, I look at this and I think, he's going to have to be really important. I think to Zach's point, I think if Curtis McKenzie can find ways to put the puck in the back of the net, the way that he has pretty consistently throughout his career and throughout the season, Ty Dellandrea, similarly to your point, they've just got to score. They've got to find ways to get Rockford on their toes. This Texas team is a team that was fighting for their playoff lives up until the last moments of the season. They've been playing playoff hockey for a while, something that Rockford hasn't been doing. So they need to continue with the momentum that they ended the season with, come in, play a really strong series, and hopefully find a way to get this one wrapped up.
Okay, so how about the opposition? What happens for them to win?
I think Rockford's got to get greasy. I look at their top performers. Lukas Reichel, 6 penalty minutes. Dylan McLaughlin, 4 penalty minutes. Mike Hardman, 8 penalty minutes. Michael Tepley, 6. All these guys in single digits, they're way too nice. Texas is not going to be nice to them. Rockford, you got to get down and dirty. You might have to sit a little bit in the box, but you got to send a message. You're not going away from this one cleanly. I can guarantee you that. If you do, you're not moving on.
And I do think that this is going to be a grimy series. This is going to be, one of these ones where you're kind of in the corner. You need a couple garbage goals to kind of get yourself going. And I think that that's going to be the way to do it, right? Just start throwing pucks on net, hang around the front of the net, wait for that rebound. And once you're able to get there, that's when you're going to want to start throwing pucks into the back of the net, shovel them in, hang around the front of the net, make Texas angry, and then go from there. And that's going to be the biggest way that they're going to be able to win this series.
Yeah, you've got to get physical. You've got to be comfortable with playing playoff hockey. And it's something that I don't know that Rockford is necessarily as equipped as Texas is. And I look at, just the way in which these teams have played all season. I think you all make excellent points. You got to get greasy. You got to learn how to play that style of hockey. If you're the Blackhawks and you're looking at these guys, you're excited about this potential opportunity to see these young prospects get a chance to really start playing that hockey, start to develop that hockey, because they haven't gotten a chance to really in the regular season. And now it's time for them to shine. And so in order for them to win, they're going to have to get greasy.
All right, in the regular season, Rockford has a 4-4-0-0 record against Texas. Meanwhile, Texas is 4-3-0-1. But who's going to take this first round series? Best of 3.
I got Texas taking this in 3. I think this is a team that's been playing playoff hockey for a while now. Not that Rockford hasn't, but Texas was kind of in that bottom of the Central and has had for months now, just had to fight and claw their way through. And they went into Grand Rapids, who they were fighting with for that playoff spot, for a back-to-back in Van Andel Arena, and won both of those games in pretty convincing fashion against the Griffins, which is, just another desperate team in there. And, one of them's playing this week and one of them's not. And I think Texas is going to keep rolling. And I kind of just don't want to see the Wolves play Rockford. They've kind of had their number this year. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I'm actually going with Texas in the clean sweep. I think with Texas, like we mentioned, Rockford's going to need to get dirty. They're going to take penalty minutes. Texas got the 6th best power play in the league. I look at Texas to have a really great opportunity to taking this 1 and 2.
Yeah, but for me, I kind of got to go. I think that Rockford's going to be able to do it, and I think that they're going to do it in 3 games. That third game is just going to be so tight, though. It's going to be really going on. But the one key thing, home ice advantage. It's got to be used. It's got to be used to your advantage, and I hope that they do.
All right, now we're going to look at the second and last of our division semifinal games. Once again, that is a best-of-5 series that's going to be kicking off this week. All the other division semifinals, well, they're waiting on winners from these play-in rounds, but this time setting our sights on the second-seeded Manitoba Moose in the Central against the third-seeded Milwaukee Admirals. Now, games 1 and 2 will be in Milwaukee Friday and Saturday, the 6th and 7th. First game at 8, second game at 7. Now, once again, all times are in Eastern time. So just a heads up there. So do the conversions as you will. Game 3 will be on Wednesday, the 11th in Manitoba at 8 o'clock. Game 4 and game 5, if necessary, also in Manitoba. But game 4 in Manitoba, 8 o'clock on Friday, the 13th. And then Sunday, the 15th at 3 o'clock. So, guys, who is going to stand out for each team of this series?
For me, it's got to be Burden all the way, and that's going to be one of the big factors for me. I was able to see Burden play last year and again this year because of the COVID, and you know, I've really come to like the way that he's been able to stand by his team. I said it in the preview that I kind of talked about, is that you kind of see that the way that he's playing, you're starting to see the fruits of the goaltender that he's going to be. He's going to be the big star. And on the other side, it's got to be Rocco Grimaldi. He's just been playing so good for the Admirals. And that's got to be a key factor in this.
I'm going to go with Morgan Barron for Manitoba. This is a kid that they came over in the Andrew Kopp deal, and who's just a big body and who's built for this playoff style game. And I'm really excited to see if, you know, he's worth the price of that trade package that Winnipeg paid for him. On Milwaukee's side, I'm going with the real wild card here, a name that just kind of popped up as of Tuesday, Yaroslav Askarov, with Connor Ingram, who we talked about a lot about with Pat Williams as a potential spoiler here in the central bracket. Well, with Yusei Saros hurt, Ingram's called up to Nashville. Well, all Nashville did was sign just their absolute blue chip prospect over from Russia. And, you know, okay, you can say this guy hasn't played any games in North America, but when you're as good as Askarov, you don't really need to. You're going to play wherever. And he's got the talent that could potentially change the whole landscape of this playoffs. And I think he's the X factor here.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the X factor for a couple of reasons, right? I mean, with Connor Ingram being up, it's a matter of if he sticks and he plays well, it's going to be great for him. But if he doesn't, woof. Like, it could be, I mean, talk about trial by fire, right? I think he's the key to the series for both teams. Like, call that a little bit of a cop-out, but I think he's going to be the X factor for both the Moose and for the Admirals.
All right. So if Manitoba manages to win in this best of 5, what went right for them?
Same thing that's been going right for them all season. They've never had like a big individual point producer. It's always been points by committee. And this team loves shooting the puck. They shoot the puck from anywhere. They shoot the puck from everywhere. They shoot the puck from here, there, everywhere. And when you got a goalie like Askarov coming in, making his debut, and to beat a goalie like that, you just got to keep shooting the puck. You got to keep shooting the puck. See what this kid's made of. Keep shooting. Shoot for rebounds. Shoot for everything. And I think Manitoba's just got to stick to their game, and they need just an absolute all-hands approach in order to take a very tough Milwaukee squad on.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Manitoba's got to stay out of the box. You've got a Milwaukee team that is absolutely lethal on the power play, and if you don't play disciplined hockey, you're going to put guys out there to light you up, right? Like the Grimaldis of the world. I mean, it's something that goes. It's cliche, right? In playoff hockey, you got to play disciplined hockey. You got to stay out of the box. Games are called a lot tighter, but man, it's just something they've got to do.
And for me, it's got to go right back to the meat and potatoes of playoff hockey, and that's strong goaltending and strong defense. Look, Milwaukee has been really hot as of late, and going into the back half of this season, they've improved so much since the first half. So for me, that's what I'm kind of looking at is, I'm looking at some of their defense. We talk Lundmark and Sandberg and all of these guys Ogilny, all these guys who have been staples of their defense all throughout the season. They got to continue that. That's got to move in to this series against Milwaukee.
Flip side again, Milwaukee. What will they do right to try to secure a victory?
Yaroslav Askarov. If he can stymie all those Moose shots and play to his ability that he was an 11th overall pick for, then Milwaukee's going to advance. As simple as that.
I think it's similar, but a little different. I think it's just limiting those shots, right? Like if they can find a way to keep the Moose from getting, 30, 40, 50 shots a game, then they're going to find a way to win this series. You've got to limit the chances on your young goaltender, and you've got to score early and often. You've got to, on the opposite side of it, you've got to draw penalties, right? You're at your best when you're on your power play. So you got to draw penalties, frustrate the heck out of the Moose, and score goals to give your rookie goaltender a shot.
And looking at the Moose on paper, they're a pretty balanced team all around. They have a lot of good little pieces that make up a great big puzzle. And there's no one real star player on this team, which is the biggest thing. And for the Milwaukee Admirals, they need to be able to shut that down. And that starts with zone entries. You have to make sure that you don't have a couple guys sneaking ahead and looking for that pass, because that the Moose are capable of being able to do that because they know where each other are on the ice at any given time. So being able to block that extra offensive player, that's going to be huge in this series.
Finally, series predictions. Manitoba has the edge in the regular season series, 7-4, 1-0. But as we all know, playoffs are a totally different animal. Can they do it again, do you think?
I'm taking Admirals in 5.
Moose in 5.
I'm going to go Moose in 4.
There we go. All right. Now, finally, we're going to turn our sights to the Pacific Division. Again, this is a play-in round where the Ontario Reign, the second seed out there, is playing the 7th seeded San Diego Gulls. I have a feeling we can get through this one pretty quick because, I think Ontario is going to kind of just squeak by on this one. But potential series MVP, guys. Who do you have?
Do I have to pick one?
Right.
Yes.
I mean, looking up and down the Reign roster, you already know the cop-outs are there. TJ Tynan, Marty Frk. You're looking at Anderson Dolan. You got a strong goaltending as well. And so for me, it's got to be TJ Tynan. We talked about him so much throughout the year. And for the other side in San Diego, it has to come from Dostal. Like, they really need some kind of strong goaltending to stop out the powerful offensive team, the juggernaut that is the Reign. The possibility is there. We've seen, it's that Tampa Columbus series a few years back. This is what we're kind of looking at, and it's a David versus Goliath, and who knows?
Yeah, I'm not thinking, overthinking this one. TJ Tynan's your horse. You ride him, and San Diego is going to need a legendary performance out of Dostal. But it's only 3 games. You never know.
Yep. I mean, no sense in having a big brain take here. I'm going with the same.
All right. Well, I think this answer is going to be quite obvious, but if Ontario Reign wins in this best of 3 series, what happened, guys?
They came to the ring.
More goals.
They simply showed up.
He scored more goals than the goals.
Oh, poor San Diego.
But Patrick Williams, I mean, you heard him on our show last week. I mean, he thinks that there's a chance, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for him, but I just don't see it. We're gonna come back next week after the goals won in 3 games, and we're all just gonna be like absolutely beside ourselves, right? But yeah, I mean, it's just this one to me doesn't feel like a contest.
Congratulations. You squeaked your way into the playoffs. Your reward? Playing the Ontario Reign.
I do feel so bad for them, but oh my gosh, if somehow San Diego wins, we have got to get Jacob Forster, our Ontario Reign beat writer, in on this, because that'll be a meltdown for the ages. Not saying he's going to melt down, but just the fact that Ontario, if they lose, is the meltdown.
Can we do game like the final deciding game? Watch a goals game with Jay Forrester just to see what happens.
The main game.
Oh my gosh, that would be great. Let's get working on those rights. But let's say in some way San Diego finds a way to win. What happened?
The rain bus broke down on the way to the rink. But if we're gonna get into it, I do think that the goals have the way that they win is that, you know, the goals come out to the rink and they hear the stuff that like we're saying on the pod. They got no chance. Why are they even showing up? Rain in two. It's, you know, and that's all going to fuel these guys that they have absolutely nothing to lose. These young kids that are going to go out and just play their hearts out. You know, Lucas Stostall is going to be out there again, you know, second coming of Jacques Quinn. And, you know, and they're going to look at it and say, we only need 2 games. It's not like we got to go out there in a best of 7. You need 2 games. Teams have won 2 games against worse odds than this. So why not the goals?
And you know what? Stranger things have happened too. And you know, we talked about so much about the offense, and that's got to be countered. That starts with a shutdown game. You're going to rely heavily on your defense if you're the San Diego Gulls. You're going to want to make sure that they're not able to enter the zone in any kind of form whatsoever. Block all the quality shots. You need to make sure that anything that's going on to Dostal is a very good goaltender, a .916 save percentage through 40 games. That's really good for the Pacific Division. That's really something to kind of look at. He's got to be the storyline. So, I mean, this is going to be something that we're kind of be looking at for this series.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you got to – I've said it multiple times. You got to stay out of the box. The Reign #1 power play, courtesy of folks like TJ Tynan, like Marty Ferk. You got to just stay out of the box, and you've got to give Dostal a chance. If you don't do that, it's going to be a long 2 games because it's not going to be free. If you can't stay disciplined, you're done.
And finally, you guys might just go ahead and say it all in unison, but what is your prediction?
Goals in 3.
I couldn't give him the sleep. I'm kidding.
No. Give me. I'll say the Goals do. They take 1. Why not? They have nothing to lose. But Ontario's just too much rain. Ontario in 3.
The Gulls will only score 2 goals, none of which will matter. It's going to be rain, a clean sweep.
For full context, Ontario does have the season victory head-to-head 9-3-0-0.
So it was close this season.
Yeah, you know.
So you're saying there's a chance.
San Diego won 3, so
I would say if they find a way to win 3 again, they're golden. But they only need to win 2.
So there was actually one game where they tallied 5. Oh, actually, in the same month, in March, San Diego 4, Ontario 0, San Diego 5, Ontario 1.
Was there a shooter-tutor in that?
That I don't know. Maybe. We need to go back and look. Those 2 numbers just really jumped out at me. Otherwise, they were all pretty heavily in Ontario's favor. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the 3rd-seeded Colorado Eagles and the 6th-seeded Henderson Silver Knights. So, which players stand out?
So for Henderson, they're going to be getting Logan Thompson back in net, and a guy who actually I think ended up with better numbers up in Vegas than he did with Henderson, but a guy also who went and played through the stretch run of getting a team, an NHL franchise, nearly into the postseason, and just in heartbreaking fashion having that come to an end. And he's going to be out there with the confidence that he and experience coming in from the show. And I think you're going to be seeing a whole different goaltender coming in here in this series than we saw earlier in the year. Not that he was bad earlier in the year, but I think he's going to take his game to the next level here. And for Colorado, I mean, it begins and ends with Kiefer Sherwood.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to go similar route with Colorado, but I'm wondering if like Brendan Brisson is going to have something to say about this before it's all said and done. He's played really well in the games that he's been up for. He's got 8 points in 7 games, 3 goals and 5 assists with Henderson. So he's going to be really interesting to watch in this series. So we'll see how it goes. He registered 6 points against Stockton in 3 games. So, I mean, the kid's good. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him play in the series.
And I'll go a little bit of a different route because I kind of like Dorofeyev and the way that he's kind of excelled on the top line. He's been playing up there with Ben Jones as far as what I can understand. And so when you kind of look at that, he's got to be able to perform well. On the other side, it's got to be goaltending. And if we see a win, it has to be from Onanen. So for me, that's the kind of one of the things he has to be the MVP. There's no doubt about it. This Henderson squad is really good at what they do offensively, and he's got to be the start of the show.
Obviously, we're going to head over into looking to see what went right for the team. So, if Colorado wins, what did they do right?
Oh, hey, I did a whole write-up about this. Well, if the Eagles win, then they're going to do what they've done all year, and that's pour it on. Other than the Ontario Reign, this team's got the most goals of the explosive Pacific Division. And I think that really goes out to say something. It's not, I mean, Kiefer Sherwood, again, kind of leading the charge, but you have Jordan Gross, another all-star there on the blue line. You have Dylan Sakura. I almost said his brother Tyler there, but 73 points. They make up that big three-headed monster there for Colorado, but you have guys like Mikhail Maltsev and Martin Kaut, couple big draft picks that really fill out that depth of that team. So it's not just the top guys. It's a complete effort. And offensively, the Silver Knights just really don't match up in this. So if Colorado just keeps pouring it on, I think eventually at some point the floodgates will open and they can kind of make this a quick series here.
To your point, I mean, Colorado this is the ideal matchup. I mean, this whole 3 through 6 in the Pacific was really in flux up until right toward the end. And for them to draw Henderson here, I mean, that's a big win for them. I think just keep playing the game that you've played throughout the stretch. Keep finding ways to score. I mean, like Logan Thompson's going to be big in net for Henderson, but it's going to be all Colorado all day if they can find a way to get the puck in the back of the net.
Now, how about Henderson? We heard that they're getting some reinforcements in net, but what else has to go right for them to beat an Eagles squad that we basically doubted would even compete at the beginning of the season, and now they find themselves up in that third slot?
I think you gotta really dictate the pace of this series. I don't think if you allow Colorado to open up with that run and gun system that they play so well, this is just going to be bad news bears all over it. So you gotta dump and chase. You gotta muck and grind in the neutral zone along the boards. You gotta turn this into just an ugly hockey series, because that's really, if this turns into a run and gun, they're not going to be here very long.
Just got to keep pounding the goaltender, and that means shots from all angles. You're going to want to be looking for that big, juicy rebound. This is where you're going to be looking for these quality shots, these not-so-quality shots, and just keep pouring it on them, right? And that's surefire is a good way to let the gas tank just run out, is just keep pouring shots onto the goaltender, and one of them has to bounce in.
Yeah, and you've got to frustrate Colorado. Colorado has the worst penalty kill in the playoffs this season. And so if you can find a way, granted, the second worst barely is Ontario, and they're pretty good. I don't think we're too worried about them. But, like, if you can find a way to put yourself on the man advantage, to score quickly in the man advantage, get these guys questioning what they can do, it's possible. It's possible that Henderson can find a way to crack some of that Eagle armor and kind of go on what I would consider to be an upset.
All right, so in the regular season, Henderson had the advantage, 5-3-0-0 over the Eagles. Everyone wants to know, what do you guys think? Can Colorado make the comeback?
Henderson, and it's going to go down to the deciding game, though.
I got Eagles in 2. Henderson's got a lot of, they got a lot of talent, but you gotta, like I said, you gotta really turn this series inside out. I just don't know if they have the personnel to go and do that. So give me the Eagles and clean sweep here.
I gotta say, I think Henderson will find a way to get a game, but give me the Eagles in 3.
All right, we have one final playoff series to look at here. The 4th-seeded Bakersfield Condors versus the 5th-seed Abbotsford Canucks. Of course, the Canucks, their very first season as a franchise, making it into the playoffs. But who's going to stand out above the rest on an individual level?
For me, I'm kind of looking at Jack Rathbone because the way that he's been playing over the course of the season has really been exceptional. And that's kind of one of the players that you kind of rely on. You kind of look for a little bit of a boost. And Vancouver had a really great back half of the season. And I mean, that kind of trickles down the farm team as well. And they got to be able to use that. On the other side, it's got to be Seth Griffin. And you know how well that he's been. You know that the wealth of experience he has. We talked about it earlier in the season and how they're going to have to rely on him.
So for Bakersfield, I'm going to go with Dylan Holloway. And here's a young kid who has really, just all the dynamic skill of that you could ever wish for. And he's kind of, I don't want to say he struggled. He's a rookie here, but in a year where rookies have come above and beyond in so many different ways, he's kind of had a bit of a quiet season. And other than one absolutely ridiculous highlight reel assist that he had against Henderson earlier this year, the talent's all there. He's just got to kind of put it together. But if he does, look out. And I've had to go over the shoulders of Olympian Adam Cracknell over here in order to make this call. So I hope he makes me look good. But for Abbotsford, I'm going to kind of go. I've been making kind of a theme of this, but former Wolves from last year, and it's Sheldon Rempel. I think there's going to be so much attention diverted to the other Sheldon Dries, that I think Rempel is going to be allowed to kind of step up in, and if Bakersfield doesn't look over their shoulder, you're so worried about the one goal scorer, then the next one's going to come back door and he's going to bury you.
I cannot believe that we have gone this long in this series prediction without talking about Sheldon Dries. He's got to be the player for the Canucks that's going to be the difference maker. One of the league's elite goal scorers this season, and he is poised to continue laying it on. And I think Bakersfield is going to fall victim to it. I think there's a lot of weapons there on that Canucks team, and I think similarly there to you, Andrew. I mean, Dylan Holloway is somebody that I look at on the other side of the ice that could have a real impact, and he's going to have to. I think again, no disrespect to Adam Cracknell, but he's going to have to be the difference maker.
I think it's hard for me to go one direction or the other, but I dial it back, and I've honestly been looking forward to this matchup since the Colton Sevier hit on Jack Rathbone. And I think for either team to advance into this bracket, you have to be disciplined. You can't let your emotions get the best of you, because both teams have the talent. They have the personnel that's going to bury you if you do. If you take dumb penalties, if you take a run at a guy and try and take someone's head off, and you put your team on a 5-minute major in a 3-game series, that's gonna bury your season. So I think I know it's like, one side or the other. Well, this is the key to both teams.
To me, this is a coin flip series, right? And so for me, I think the answer is the same on both sides, and it's exactly what you just said, Andrew. I mean, it's your key playmakers have to show up, and if you don't end up showing up in this series, I mean, then you're going to be toast. I think we're going to see a series where one team will show up one night, the other will show up the next, and then game 3 is what's going to matter. And I think, again, you flip a coin and you tell me Abbotsford won, you tell me Bakersfield won, and I believe you.
And I mean, it's one of those things where you actually kind of have to keep your game so tight in these coin flip series. For me, you kind of got to look at your defensive structure. You got to look at your offense. You got to look at your goaltending. Everything has to be squeaky clean when you're looking at this kind of a series. You're kind of looking at the way that both of these teams are playing over the course of the season, and they're so close. And you just have to be able to tighten things at every kind of corner to be able to move forward in this kind of series. And again, it's the same sort of advice for both these guys. Just keep it clean, because I think this has got to be the closest series that we have here.
Now, going Henderson's way is definitely going to be that home ice advantage. Again, they get it all 3 games of the playoffs. They'll play on Tuesday the 3rd, Wednesday the 4th, Monday the 9th, all at 10 o'clock. So with that being said, there's a bit of a stack against Abbotsford, but what can they do to make sure that they win?
I kind of said my piece on not giving the penalties, not giving up on the penalties. That was kind of a double edge on both teams.
Cool.
It's kind of a cop out, but I'm running with it.
So am I. Sorry.
I like it. All right. Well, then who would be your winner of this series? Now, Bakersfield and Abbotsford very close in the regular season standings. 4-4-0-0. Abbotsford 4-3-1-0. So close. This could go either way.
Coin
Best
flip,
of 3?
like Jeremy said. Yeah,
It's got to be 3. Yeah, it's got to be a 3-game series. I'll go. I'm just gonna root for them because it's their first year. I'm gonna go to Abbotsford.
Sheldon Dry's double OT goal in Game 3 to break. I hate that one of these teams has to go home in 3 games. That's not
Right.
That's not fair. But one of them has to, and I guess it's going to be Bakersfield.
And I think this is going to be probably a first. I think all of these games are going to OT. In a year that has seen so much chaos in the AHL, it would only be fitting to see all of these go to OT and the final going to Abbotsford.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it. I know it's a little bit of a different format, but whenever we have so many series to talk about, we want to get you guys the information that matters. So now you have it. We'll be back with results of this week's series, previews of the next series that are going to be coming up and all that again next week. But for now, this is going to be it for the Holy Grail this week. If you like us, please subscribe, share, rate the podcast, share it with all your friends. But if you want to go ahead and chat with us a little bit, you can give us all a follow on Twitter. You can find me at FPH Monsters.
You can find me at FPH Wolves or at FPH Griffins.
If you want to tell me why it's a good thing that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is injured and not going to be playing in the playoffs this season, you can follow me at FPH Americans.
How am I supposed to follow that up? Come on now. And yes, you can find me at the team that chokes in the final game at FPH Marlies.
And of course, you can find all sorts of playoff coverage for the AHL and the ECHL at fieldpasshockey.com. And then be sure to check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts. You have Inside the SPHL with James Hayes. You also have Syracuse Speaks, which is a Syracuse Crunch-centric podcast with Alexandra Ackerman, Monsters Musings with Jacob Forster and myself, and then the 3 Periods podcast with Matthew Harding. But on behalf of all of us here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week. Enjoy the playoffs, and we'll see you again next Thursday. Bye.
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 This has been the Holy Grail Podcast. Have a question or topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.